but freedom, passed from hand to yearning hand, and the vision of our fathers spread hope throughout this land, as the dream some fought and died for in my heart becomes my own. I will strive to keep her promise, America, my home. America, America, may God bless America, and freedom reign across America, my home. From the shorelines to the prairies, to the cities great and small, we have reaped the fruits of justice and liberty for all.
So a deep appreciation for the blessings of freedom that we know in our wonderful country. I'm Dr. George Simon, welcoming you to another edition of Character Matters. This is the program where we talk about what I consider to be the defining issue of our time, the character crisis that we face and that affects so many areas of our lives, from our home relationships to our intimate relationships to our small town and community relations, and to our national affairs. It affects our economics. It affects our social structure. Every area of our lives is touched by the problem, by the issue. And it's been my focus for the last 30 plus years to be dealing with this problem, to be writing and speaking about it. And if you'll check out my blog site at manipulative-people.com, that's www.manipulative-people.com, you'll find a wide range of resources that address the character issue. And you'll also find references to my books, In Sheep's Clothing, Understanding and Dealing with Manipulative People, regarded by many as the definitive book on the subject of interpersonal manipulation, and also my book, Character Disturbance, The Phenomenon of Our Age, the book that delves into all the various character disturbances that you're likely to encounter in your life and in your relationships, and how to best survive in our character-impaired age, and especially what to look for when you go seeking help for these kinds of problems. And also my book for the Christian faith community, The Judas Syndrome, and my book with my co-author, Dr. Kathy Armistead, for those of you in relationships who are wondering how it all happened and want to make sure that it doesn't happen again. If you've been in a toxic relationship with a character-disturbed person, my book, How Did We End Up Here, with Dr. Armistead, perhaps is just the book you're looking for. So I've spent my career dealing with this problem and speaking about this problem. And tonight we're going to talk about several things, including the current series of articles that I have running on my personal blog at manipulative-people.com. I also write for the blog Psychology, Philosophy, and Real Life at www.counselingresource.com. That's Counseling Resource with 2 L's in counseling, counselingresource.com. You can find articles on both of those blogs that I contribute regularly. And we're going to be talking tonight about the series that I've begun. Just last Friday, started a new series on my manipulative-people.com blog. But I also have some other issues that I want to address, and I think that tonight's program might be one of those where folks are going to want to call in and comment. So if you have a mind to, if you have a question you want to ask, some thoughts you want to share, maybe you have some issues you want to take with some of the points that I make, whatever the case may be, that's just fine. Love to have you engage in the conversation. At 718-717-8296, that's 718-717-8296. I'll be happy to take your call. I've been getting a deluge of emails following an appearance that I made on the Lawrence O'Donnell program on MSNBC last week. It's very interesting because I debated for hours, truly for hours, about doing this program because I'm familiar with the program. And for those of you who do not know my political stance, I am a staunch, I repeat that, I am a staunch independent. I find fault with both sides of the political spectrum. I think we desperately need some independent third and fourth parties, strong, viable parties, to hold the two-party system to account, because I think it's become, unfortunately, corrupted by the folks that finance both sides. You know, each side talks a good line, but in the end, they serve their financiers. And so you couldn't get a more broken system. And so I have been, for most of my adult life, a very staunch independent. And I vote primarily character. And I have to say that I've been increasingly distressed and maybe even depressed over the past 20-some years. Because each time I go to the polls, it seems like I'm pulling the lever or marking the pad for the lesser of two evils. And it distresses me greatly. It distresses me to think that we live in such a character-impaired age, that there's no one that I would consider of the type of character that I would be able to enthusiastically put my support behind. It's really distressing. I would love to get really fired up about somebody who I believed had the integrity to actually care. You know, I'm no stranger to that whole issue. I've spent my lifetime helping people grow and change. And I got to tell you, before you can do that kind of work, you have to spend an awful lot of time on yourself. You have to spend an awful lot of time looking into your own hang-ups, your own insecurities, your own biases, all your stuff. You have to look into that very deeply. And sometimes that's really not very pretty at all. Because unless that stuff is out of the way, you can't see your way clear to help anybody else. Jesus is famous for saying that you can't take the speck out of your brother's eye unless you first remove the log or the beam or the pole in your own eye. The metaphor is clear. You're looking for a tiny imperfection in somebody else, And yet you've got huge imperfections in yourself that bias your perceptions. So how in the world can you see your way clear to help somebody else really change and grow? You can't do it unless you've done some homework on yourself. And that isn't the only requirement. After you've done that, you have to have a genuine regard. You have to be willing to put the person's welfare above everything else. Their overall welfare. Their overall welfare within a social system. You have to put the greater good first. And that's how you clear the way to help people change. Well, I pray that there would one day come a leader that I could believe so truly had the interest of the average person out there busting their butts to make this all work, to feed their families, to raise their children, to secure their homes, to do a productive day's work. I wish that I could really get energized and get behind somebody who I really felt in my heart of hearts not only was so committed to that, to really advocating for the average person, but also had the integrity of character to be trustworthy. And I got to tell you, I don't trust either one of our major candidates as far as I can throw them. I've seen too much of them. So I wish I had a better choice facing me. And so I debated for a long time. My wife and I had a very substantial discussion. I was vacationing partly in the Pacific Northwest last week and visiting with my siblings. A chance for us to get together. I have a large family. I come from a large family, and we're all grown. We're advanced in years. Many of us have grandchildren. We don't often get a chance to spend time together. We've always been emotionally close-knit, and so we took advantage of an opportunity to spend some time together. And then this phone call came in from the producer of the program, and I really debated. And my wife and I, we had a big discussion about this because she wasn't sure why I was debating. Because some would say that whenever you get a chance to have a national audience tune in, that you have a golden opportunity before you to gain exposure for yourself and for your work and whatnot. And all that's true. But I know that it's unfortunately, journalism is dead. There's no such thing anymore. We have sensational news, and not only do we have sensational news, but we have biased news. So if you want to get anywhere near the truth, you have to listen to a number of different sources and get a number of different takes, because otherwise you're not even going to get close to the truth, because nobody bothers to objectively and without bias simply pursue the truth. It's just not an agenda item anymore. It's all about getting the audience, all about getting ratings, all about sensationalism, and all about scoring political points. It's a shame. It's a crying shame. The death of the Fifth Estate. It's really a crying shame. But it's history. It's done. And it's not coming back. Not anytime soon, anyway. Perhaps when enough damage is done, the pendulum will reverse. But not for a while. So anyway, I really debated about this because I knew what the agenda would be. And so I hemmed and hawed, and I kept putting the producer off. And then as I was doing so, the producer let me know that they kept booking other people to join in on the conversation. Because the host, of course, was going to be determined to fulfill his agenda. And so finally we struck a deal where I would have some segments to get my points across. And that I would keep it highbrow, and I wasn't going to just trash somebody. You know, unfortunately, just given the character that he is, Donald Trump gives ample opportunity to anybody to trash his character. You don't have to be a rocket scientist or hold a PhD in psychology to see the narcissism in him, because he's pretty crude about it. And one of the points I made to the producer of this program before coming on it is that I'm not sure which is the more dangerous personality type. The crude character, who we know that they have significant character flaws, but they're not sophisticated enough to hide them, or the person that has just the same problematic character but is very polished, knows just what to say, knows just how to come across, but is just as flawed in character. I'm not really sure which of those two types is most dangerous. Each one presents danger in its own way. So we struck the deal, and then I made the appearance. And the reason I mention this is that fairly immediately after the program, a deluge of emails pouring in through my blog and other ways. You know, people have an interesting way of finding you somehow when they really want to get to you. And, you know, the audience on MSNBC is not that big, frankly. So I did not expect the avalanche of emails. And, of course, they fell into two camps. One set of folks was just enamored and just was singing my praises, and the other group was taking me to task for basically in some way inadvertently supporting one candidate over the other. And I realized what I probably wasn't going to be able to get away with saying, because, you know, these programs can, in the end, be edited, and your segments can be cut. So I tried to keep it as highbrow as possible and make the point that Mr. Trump is not the only flawed character in this race. And I left it at that. But what I did say, and that I wanted to have be the real takeaway moment from my appearance, is that one thing good coming out of this whole mess, this election cycle, is that for the first time we are having a serious discussion about character. You know, with narcissism, when a narcissist engages in their grandiose self-appraisal, sometimes there's a very fine line between that grandiosity and true delusionality. There is a fine line. So some people were wondering. Some people were wondering and even questioning the sanity of this candidate. And I wanted to make the point that we were talking about character, and that it's about time we talked about it. It's about time not only that we had a serious discussion about it, but it's about time that we made it a central consideration when we're trying to pick people to hold positions of great power. I've said this many, many times, and I make this point in my training workshops all the time when I train professionals. And by the way, I've just updated my training schedule, and you can find information about it on both my manipulative-people blog, manipulative-people.com blog, on the workshops and seminars page, and also on the counseling education resource site at counselingeducation.com. Cross country. I'm sorry. I misspoke. I've been saying counseling education. It's cross-country education. That's crosscountryeducation.com. And you'll find that, and this is what I instruct my attendees at workshops on, you will find that persons who have significant character deficits are predisposed to rapidly pursue power. And the more seriously character impaired they are, the more they want to pursue power for its own sake. They simply relish having power. It's the mark of a significant character disturbance. And these kinds of folks inevitably abuse whatever power they get because they're rabid power seekers. They can never have enough power, and because they cherish it for its own sake. It makes them feel good. It makes them feel powerful. It makes them feel important, invincible, just to have the power. It validates their already grandiose self-image. So, there's the old axiom that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. But years of dealing with character-impaired people and gathering clinical data suggests to me that it's the character-flawed individual who rapidly pursues power in the first place and inevitably abuses it as soon as they get it. They have every intention of wielding it indiscriminately and inappropriately right from the beginning, which is why they so rabidly seek it. They crave it. They love it. And they can't wait to get their hands on it. And I make the point in both of my books, in Sheep's Clothing. Well, I make it in 3 of my books, in the Judas Syndrome, in Character Disturbance, and in Sheep's Clothing, that if power were itself a corrupter, and if absolute power corrupted absolutely, then parents of a newborn child would inevitably be corrupt tyrants. Because there's no greater power that a person has than over a helpless, defenseless, totally vulnerable newborn life that simply cannot survive on its own. Simply cannot make it. without the love and support of others. There's no greater power that a person can have, than a parent has over an infant. Literally the power of life and death. So if having that much power were in and of itself corrupting, and were corrupting absolutely, then no infant would have a chance. I see we have a call coming in. I'm going to go ahead and take it. I think we're back on. I hope we are. I hope we're doing all right. I think we'll find out very shortly. There was an issue with accepting this call, and we've had storms in our area, so I'm hoping the issue is resolved. I lost the connection. I hope we're back now, and when the call comes in again, I hope I'll be able to accept it without a problem. I'd like to hear what Vince has to say. Are you there, Vince?
Yes, sir. How are you?
I'm fine. I think we got you through this time.
Good. I really enjoyed reading your book. I took a week out on the river earlier last month and read the Judas Syndrome. I've got it pretty bent up reading, and I haven't even gone back through with the highlighter yet. Really good book. I found it was very valuable in identifying some situations that I encounter in life, and also for having identified and some I was kind of aware of, that development in life for myself, and the liars. I deal with a couple of them regular right here next to me, and I just almost laugh when I think about. And I learned a new term from you here a week or two back was situational management. And you just
are you talking about impression management?
Yes, I'm sorry, impression management.
Yes.
But anyways, I really did enjoy. I was out there, a real peaceful place in the river, and by myself out there along the river banks in the wilds, and it was a good time for a lot of reflection. And I think that's what we need now. We've come to a place here in America that, it's just completely diabolically opposed to what American values are supposed to stand for. The American way, and to think that the two choices or two selections are Hillary and Trump, I think everybody here should be just completely ashamed and stop and think, how did this happen? We're looking at what has happened, and we've got our hands in the air and shaking our heads, and instead of seeing, well, what has caused this? And
how do you think we got here, Vince? Well, how did this happen?
Step by step. It didn't happen overnight. It's been even just in the last 50 years of my life that it's been an incremental change. But I read here this last week that I guess it's about double up to the 30-year-olds, 18 to 30 or whatever it was. Narcissism has doubled. We look at what's given for ingestion that develops a character in these reality shows, and people like Trump that is evil and ruthless and just gobbles up everybody in his path, and corporate welfare, and he's held a hero in spewing hate. People look at that which is happening and not see why it's happening, and if I think that applies in that which is in the world about us, and most importantly our own character. For debating the different.
I'd like to follow that up a little bit with you a little bit more, but I wanted to mention something to you. I don't know if have you ever traveled to Canada, Vince?
Well, I flew out of Detroit one time and crossed a little piece of it.
Yeah, I used to live in the Detroit area, so I would go over many times, but I never really got a chance to really sample a lot of the country. And over the past 20 or so years, I've really had a chance to do a lot of traveling. And this last trip we took to the Pacific Northwest, we spent a lot of time in British Columbia. And I was just absolutely dumbfounded by something that just stuck with me. It still has stuck with me because the contrast couldn't be greater. It didn't matter where we went, and it didn't matter of what sections of town we were in. We did an awful lot of walking because the weather was just absolutely gorgeous. And we walked through some of the more depressed areas of town and even through some of the central districts of a couple of the cities on Vancouver Island. And what I was my wife and I were remarking the same thing, was the basic civility and congeniality of folks was so strikingly different. We felt perfectly safe. There are plenty of places in my own town here now. I live in Little Rock, Arkansas, where I wouldn't be caught dead after night. I might be caught dead, if I were there. But I certainly wouldn't be just walking the streets, going someplace on foot, because I'd be fearful for my life. But
I've been across this country and to many cities. One part of my life where I was, the thug life there that I've talked about. I've been in the mean streets and seen things happen. I think I just got to wonder that concentration of people all together as one factor. Of course, there's many in the depression and of people and keeping them economically depressed and so forth. But you get out in the country. In the last part of the 80s, I went up to Northern California. And I tell you, you wouldn't know the people there weren't from Oklahoma or Arkansas from how they acted. Now, but if you go up there now, that's a whole lot farther in between. You mentioned that you were, I forget the words you used, but getting on up in years, and that each generation that falls off, and the next one that comes up, they fall off just a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
So
it's this incremental decline. Yeah, and so when I got back here, it got me to remembering. It got me to thinking about my early childhood and how we actually we had the distinction of living in one of the smallest homes ever built in the city of Detroit. The developer of the community was building homes that were affordable for basic laborers, and at the time, my dad was a gas station attendant, and just barely making a living. And this was, of course, during the time when there was just one breadwinner, primarily in a family, and most women in the home were housekeepers. This was just the culture of the time. But we were in a very, modest, if not poor neighborhood. And I can remember very vividly, as a young child, we moved away from this neighborhood when I was 5 years old. So we're talking the time between when I could walk and 5 years old. And I can remember walking 18 city blocks to my grandmother's house and not having to worry about what might happen to me.
In the early 70s, I was walking to school in first grade and never a thought, you know. Of course, I was, my mom had let me know about, you know, the dangers that exist in some people's in life and not to allow yourself to be taken or, you know.
Yeah.
But it was not as common, I don't think, then, or perhaps we just didn't hear about it.
Yeah. So I want to get back to what we were discussing earlier, but my point is that I was struck by the fact that there has been a cultural erosion. There's no question about it. And the contrast became very, very vivid to me when I was on this trip. And I thought to myself, you know, there's a part of me that doesn't want to go back. And I never thought that I would feel that way about this great and blessed land that we live in. I never, ever thought that I would have a sentiment like that. But I didn't want to leave the atmosphere that I was in because it was too much like what I remember. Civil, congenial. People were so polite, I thought they were putting it on. You know, when I first encountered it at one of the places that we were staying, I thought, well, it's just the folks here and they're pouring it on thick because they want you to come back. Then we started running into it everywhere. And I thought, well, has like the whole country gotten a lesson in etiquette? And are they going to be tested? It was just unbelievable, the contrast. And then to come back and to see the kind of entitlement and the kind of incivility that I witnessed from time to time, it was just a stark reminder for me of the decline that we've incrementally experienced. So my question to you is going to be, what's been behind that incremental decline? How did that slippery slope begin?
Well, if we're looking at the cause, then we'll have to say that there is something that's making that happen. And when it is so bad and so obvious, I mean, just blatantly obvious how evil and corrupt it is today, you got to realize that couldn't have been by accident. So if you look back and just look and see all these people that have sat in these seats of decisions and having utter power of life and death over not just the individual, but utterly millions and millions of people around the world, and see what their motive is and connect their ties. And we can see that these people are criminals. They have taken and perverted law and turned the purpose of government from protecting the people into protecting it itself, and have made us the enemy. We are in an occupied country, and although there exist these good folks that are there that want to do right, and most certainly we need to hold account locally and begin there. But at the national level, it's most definitely it has gone beyond. We need to tell our congressmen and senators to come home, lock the doors, turn out the lights, come on home, and let's talk about what's really going on and what control that they have used to imprison America and change and perverted the values and what we stand for, and what we, beyond that, what we went to go do from our hearts around the world for generations to rescue. And then we find out that those wars were manipulated and profiteers. I mean, for not just decades, but centuries. Yeah. These criminals, they're a cartel amongst them. It's time to call them out.
Yeah. And, you know, Vince, that sentiment you just mentioned, I'd like to take an opportunity here. You know, I don't often talk on the program about the song that we play at the beginning and at the end of the program. The theme song is a song that my wife and I co-wrote at the turn of the millennium, and we were inspired by some thoughts about where our country's greatness really lies. It's never really been in our economic power or our military might. It's always been in the character of our people. And there have been different phases of our history. There have been times in our history where we rightfully should look back with some shame on ourselves for how we treated one another. And then there are those times when we rose up and honored our best ideals and were of the kind of character that builds a great society. And so when we approached this song that we wanted to write, we wanted to inspire people with just that kind of message. We wanted it to be personal. We wanted it to be a message to folks that this place that we live in is only going to be as good and is only going to be as solid in character as we are individually. And we wanted to inspire folks. So that's why we wrote it. And that's why whenever it gets performed anywhere in a public venue, or we get feedback from folks about its power to sway or to stir hearts, we're edified. And that's, by the way, why I do all the work that I do, from my writing to my blogging to this program. It's I believe in the spirit of America. We've not always lived up to those ideals that we've professed, but we have it within us to do it, and it's up to each one of us on an individual level to be of the kind of character that can make the fabric of our country strong. That's the point.
Yes, with character and not blind faith in what is supposed to represent, or should I say, is supposing to represent America and Americans.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Blind faith is no faith at all.
Absolutely. Well, I truly enjoy your work, Dr. Simon. I think you have, certainly one of my most favorite broadcasts on that there is. And I was wanting to ask you about the introduction to the Judas Syndrome. I wonder if you might mind if I was to read the introduction and record it up to put it
Sure.
on
Sure.
YouTube channel. That would be awesome. I would really love to do that. So, anyways, I'll get off here, and thank you for talking to me, and keep up the.
And tell me again what you'd like to have me say about the introduction.
Oh, no. I was going to read the introduction to your book and record it, but actually, since you bring that up, it's a project for my next series of broadcasts is focusing, and I would like to actually get a series of recordings with you, but I have that yet to outline that yet.
Oh, I'm happy to do it, Vince.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I'll talk to you next time, Dr. Simon, and thanks again.
Oh, thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, wonderful call. Thanks to Vince for that. So, here we are once again at the issue of what has happened. How did this incremental decline occur? One of the things that I notice is that when you put something out there enough, when it's in the public eye enough, when there's enough exposure of something, you eventually become desensitized to it. There's actually a therapy that is designed around this principle. We know that exposure to really seriously traumatic events can really emotionally scar a person and can imprint on the brain a terror response that is hard to shake. So one of the therapies, believe it or not, for people who suffer from grave forms of post-traumatic stress disorder is to re-expose them to situations that are very similar to their trauma. And to do that over and over and over and over and over again until they become desensitized to it and are no longer as unnerved. So there's a principle there that we've long known about, and that is if you expose people to certain things often enough, they become desensitized to them. And that's what I see as one of the things, not the whole thing, but one of the things that led to this incremental decline, this slippery slope that we have been witnessing over the past 25 or 30 years, that has resulted in the character crisis that we face today. And that is through the media primarily, but also in other public venues, we have been increasingly exposed to all kinds of garbage. I don't know what else to call it. Just pure rubbish. The basest kinds, the basest kinds of human behavior. The most pathetic, unseemly, disturbing aspects of human character on parade. I'm not just talking about reality television, Charles. And when you expose these kinds of things, when you expose violence, when you expose moral relativism, when you expose all of these things over and over and over and over again to where people get to thinking that it's just plain normal. And not only that, they become so used to it that they're no longer outraged. They no longer have the kind of response that they once had because they're too desensitized to it. I think that this is one of the major contributors to this slippery slope we've been on in our character decline, in our collective character decline. And I see that's going on in this current election cycle. For example, we've seen so much careful word parsing, so much sidestepping of issues, so much misrepresentation, lying by distortion, lying by omission, outright lying. We've seen so much of that from so many candidates that we simply come to expect it. Ain't no thing. Ain't no big deal. We expect it now. We're no longer outraged by it. And we also no longer hold people to account when they do it. There was a time when certain things were simply unforgivable, where we really held people to account. There were lines that you just couldn't cross. There were boundaries that you just had to respect if you were going to get any kind of public support or recognition. And those days appear gone. We don't expect very much anymore in the way of character from our leaders. And so, therefore, we don't get it. When we quit expecting it is when it became clear we were never going to get it. It's a sad, sad statement of our time. It's a sad statement. And I really thank Vince for calling in and saying some good words about the Judas Syndrome. It has a special place in my heart because it speaks about the core of faith and its power to transform a human life. It's my own personal testimony to the power of faith. And it's my own sharing of what I've witnessed in so many individuals struggling to find their way and struggling to incorporate within themselves a kind of faith that can heal them and make them whole. So it has a very, very dear spot for me, as does my most recent work with Dr. Kathy Armistead, How Did We End Up Here?, which speaks to the very issue that Vince and I were talking about. People ask themselves this question all the time, and who have found themselves either in the middle of or at the end of a toxic relationship and are dealing with all the emotional turmoil associated with it. And they want to know, how did this happen? How could I have been so deceived? How did the person I once thought hung the moon turn out to be such a disturbed character? Or am I crazy? Have I got it read all wrong? How did this happen? How did we get to this point? How did so much go so wrong? And how do I keep it from happening again? It was a book I waited a long time to write and would never have finished writing if it weren't for my co-author, Dr. Armistead, so I really appreciate that. And in that same vein, Dr. Armistead and I are polishing up our upcoming book, The 10 Commandments of Character, How to Lead a Significant Life. A book I've wanted to write for years about all the lessons, all of the important life lessons that my patients and others have taught me over the years must be not only learned and mastered, but fully embraced by individuals if they're going to develop any kind of decency of character. So, having learned from these folks, I did my best to compile what I consider to be the 10 most essential lessons that a person has to learn, not just during their formative years, when their personality is taking shape and their character is first being defined, not just then, but even after they've perhaps hit a bottom in their life and realized that they've got a lot of work to do in rebuilding some decency of character if they're going to avoid the same kind of problems that they've been having in their life. So I wanted to assemble the important lessons that we all have to learn and that we all have to master and then embrace in our hearts if we're to be people of integrity, if we're to have real integrity of character. So look for the 10 Commandments of Character, How to Lead a Significant Life. Look for this book, hopefully, at the end of the summer. If I can ever get through the edits, we will have this book ready for you at the end of the summer. It's my second book with Dr. Armistead, and I couldn't be more pleased. She's been an excellent co-writer, and she helps me organize my thoughts and present them in a way that I don't do as well myself. I don't think in certain areas, so I really appreciate her expertise and her input. And tune in also to this program and avail yourself of my other books, In Sheep's Clothing, Understanding and Dealing with Manipulative People, Character Disturbance, The Phenomenon of Our Age, and a book that's dear to my heart, oh, excuse me, that Vince mentioned just a moment ago, The Judas Syndrome. My personal testimony about the power of faith and its ability to transform a human life, elevate it to a whole new plane. And as we enter a very serious national discussion about who will lead this country of ours, I hope we will all keep in mind the importance of character. Boy, if ever there were a time, when it were so important, it would be now. These are very, very trying times. The world is literally a powder keg. And there are some very seriously minded adversaries that we face who believe that everything that we stand for is evil and merits destruction. And truly, there are some things that it appears that we stand for. It appears that way because of our behavior. There are some things that it appears that we stand for that really need some serious mindful consideration. We have some serious problems, and it's going to take a special kind of leader and a special kind of character to get us through. Unfortunately, the telltale sign of our times is that our two main choices have come down to the ones that we face now. I can't remember a more disturbing choice. I just simply can't remember. One person who got rich by conniving, cheating, stepping over, doing whatever he had to enrich himself, and then the other who got filthy rich, supposedly doing good all over the place. We need it. I'll see you again next week. Another edition of Character Men. Dr. George Simon, thanks for tuning in.